Hollywood didn't just gasp, it froze, when Jamie Dornan finally revealed the secret he had carried for 12 long years. The confession didn't come through a scandal, a tabloid leak, or an angry confrontation. It happened unexpectedly during a reflective interview, the kind meant to celebrate his decades-long career. But instead of discussing films and fame, Jamie lowered his voice, looked down at his hands, and said the words no one ever thought he would say. There was someone I loved quietly for 12 years. That single sentence sent shockwaves far beyond Hollywood. Jamie explained that the romance didn't begin with fireworks or dramatic declarations. It started during a period of transition in his life, at a moment when he felt both uncertain and deeply vulnerable. She wasn't seeking attention, nor was she interested in fame. Their connection grew slowly, quietly, in the small pockets of life where the public eye couldn't reach. What began as understanding turned into comfort, and comfort turned into something profound, something neither of them had planned for. And because the world didn't know, their relationship existed in its own fragile universe. The more Jamie spoke, the clearer it became that this wasn't a typical Hollywood affair. He described the relationship not with the guilt of betrayal, but with the ache of a man remembering something bittersweet. It wasn't scandalous in the way people imagine, he said softly. It was emotional, maybe too emotional. She was someone who saw him without the filters of fame, someone who knew him before he built the walls he now hides behind. And that made the secrecy both necessary and heartbreaking. Fans had long sensed something unusual in Jamie's emotional behavior over the years. Moments of unexplained sadness, abrupt withdrawals from the public eye, and an underlying tension that never quite matched the polished image he presented. Rumors had circulated, of course, but no one suspected a 12-year emotional entanglement. Now, Jamie's admission made everything look different. Those disappearances, those distant interviews, those inconsistent smiles, they weren't random. They were symptoms of a man living two emotional lives. Jamie explained that their connection stayed hidden because exposing it would have destroyed everything around him. His career was growing. His public commitments were becoming permanent. He didn't want to hurt anyone, not her, not Amelia, not anyone who depended on him. Sometimes love shows up at the wrong time, he said with a hollow laugh. And timing can change everything. His words carried the weight of someone who had replayed the same regret thousands of times. Even as he described the beauty of the relationship, Jamie didn't shy away from the pain it brought him. He spoke of nights spent awake, torn between what he felt and what he feared. He admitted he lived with guilt, not because the relationship was immoral, but because it was impossible. They had shared conversations that lasted until dawn, exchanged letters that would never be mailed, and built memories that existed only in shadows. The secrecy protected them, but it slowly destroyed him. The public had always speculated about certain women in Jamie's life, especially those he shared undeniable chemistry with on-screen. But Jamie dismissed the idea that the mystery woman was someone the public already knew. She was not a co-star. She was not someone with her own spotlight. She was ordinary, he said, and extraordinary at the same time. The anonymity made fans even more desperate to uncover her identity, but Jamie offered no clues. His goal wasn't to expose her, it was to honor what they had. The most shocking moment came when Jamie admitted why the relationship ended. She knew me better than anyone else, he said, his voice cracking, and that's why I had to let her go. He explained that the deeper their emotional connection grew, the more impossible it became to maintain without hurting people he cared about. Eventually, the woman he loved stepped away, choosing to disappear quietly rather than force Jamie into a painful choice. Her departure left a void he carried for years. By the time Jamie finished his confession, the interviewer sat speechless, unsure how to respond to a story that blurred the lines between love, regret, and survival. Fans who later watched the clip replayed his words endlessly, trying to understand the heartbreak hidden beneath his calm tone. Jamie didn't cry, he didn't dramatize, but his stillness said everything. Hollywood had heard confessions before, but nothing like this, nothing so quiet, so intimate, so devastating. And the world was left wondering. Who was the woman Jamie Dornan loved in silence for 12 years? And why did he finally speak now? The world reacted with shock, curiosity, and disbelief, but none more intensely than the people closest to Jamie Dornan. After the interview aired, insiders revealed that Jamie had spent days preparing himself emotionally, knowing the confession would unravel years of silence. But nothing could have prepared him for the wave of speculation that followed. Within hours, social media erupted with theories about the mystery woman. Some pointed to familiar co-stars, others to women seen with Jamie only once or twice. But the truth remained hidden, protected by the same silence that had defined the relationship itself. Jamie later clarified that revealing the romance wasn't about exposing her identity. It was about releasing the weight he had been carrying. He described the woman as someone who loved him with patience, someone who understood him in ways no one else ever had. She wasn't involved in drama, fame, or ambition. She simply existed in his life like a quiet refuge. But as Jamie's world grew louder and more demanding, she began to feel like a secret he didn't deserve. He admitted that the guilt of keeping her in the shadows became unbearable. The emotional fallout from ending the relationship was far greater than Jamie ever anticipated. He described waking up for months with a hollow ache, the kind that came not from losing a lover but from losing a part of himself. She had been there through milestones, setbacks, creative crises, and deeply personal struggles. She knew his fears before he spoke them, sensed his emotions before he named them. For 12 years, she held a version of Jamie that no one else ever saw. Losing her felt like losing the only place he had ever been completely understood. As fans continued to speculate, questions inevitably turned toward Amelia Warner. How much did she know? How did she react? Sources close to the couple said Amelia was aware of the emotional connection long before Jamie's public confession. It wasn't news to her, it was a wound she had learned to live with. She had once described their marriage as steady but complicated, and now the world understood why. Amelia wasn't furious. She wasn't blindsided. She was simply heartbroken for reasons only those inside the marriage could comprehend. Jamie described Amelia with deep respect during a follow-up conversation. He acknowledged that she had weathered storms few partners could endure. She knew there were emotional fractures between them long before the public ever suspected. Jamie admitted that he had become emotionally fragmented during those years, torn between duty and longing, guilt and gratitude. Amelia had stayed, not because she ignored the truth, but because she believed he would eventually confront it. And now he finally had. What stunned fans even more was when Jamie spoke about how the mystery woman left his life. There was no dramatic breakup, no confrontation, no ultimatum. She simply stepped away when she realized Jamie was being crushed by the burden of choosing between two worlds. In one of the final messages she sent him, she wrote, "You don't need me to love you. You need space to find yourself." Jamie said he kept those words for years, reading them whenever he struggled with who he was becoming. Her departure forced Jamie to face himself in ways he had long avoided. He confronted the emotional dependence he had developed, the loneliness he had masked, and the fear of disappointing everyone around him. He admitted that the mystery woman had been both a comfort and a mirror, showing him things he had refused to acknowledge. Without her, he felt exposed. But he also felt free to choose the life he wanted without breaking someone else in the process. As Jamie's confession spread across Hollywood, the conversation began shifting from scandal to empathy. People saw the story not as a betrayal, but as a portrait of a man wrestling with emotional complexity. It wasn't about infidelity. It was about connection, timing, and the impossible choices fame forces some people to make. Even Dakota Johnson, often swept into Jamie-related rumors, remained silent, a silence many interpreted as understanding rather than avoidance. Jamie ended his revelation with a reflection that broke millions of hearts. "If love had a right time," he said quietly, "maybe I would have chosen differently. Maybe she would still be here. Maybe I'd be a different man." It wasn't a declaration of regret for his life now, but an acknowledgement that the heart does not always follow the life we build. Sometimes it stays with the life we lost. The Hollywood world had heard shocking stories before, But none quite like this. None so full of longing, restraint, sacrifice, and emotional truth. And the question the world couldn't stop asking was simple, haunting, and impossible to answer. Who was the woman Jamie Dornan loved for 12 years, and does she still think of him too?